Alright guys, welcome to Toon Boom Harmony. Let's go ahead and open up the program. Here is the welcome window. We can change the name of our scene. We can also change the location by clicking browse. Below you will see the camera size, width, height, and frame rate. We're going to keep all of that as is. When you're naming your files, make sure to write down your first name, last name, underscore, and assignment name. In this case, we're going to make this week 1 anim for animation. Once we're ready to proceed, go ahead and click on create scene. Alright, so here's the interface for Toon Boom. We have the top main menu here. Below you have the functions. To the left hand side we have the tools. At the bottom, the layers, timeline, and to the right you would see options. Whenever I select a tool, you would see that different options will come up. For now, I'm going to go ahead and stick with the brush. To get started, you would see our screen being grayed out. For this, we will need to create a color card to make it white. Go down to layers, click on the plus button, and select color card. We're going to click and drag below our drawing layer. We can lock this layer as we will not be using it anymore. And you can always toggle on and off the visibility by clicking on the two eyes. Click on your drawing layer and now you'll be able to draw. We're going to rename the drawing layer to Plan. Double click the layer and rename it Plan. Here we're going to draw the plan for the bouncing ball animation. First things first, let's draw a ground plane, then the trajectory or path our ball will follow. We want to make our ball bounce at least 2 times and then roll. And now we're going to draw our keyframes. The keyframes are the main drawings that will lead our animation. We want to place the keyframes on top of our path. Now we're going to add our extremes. Our extremes allow us to follow through with the animation. Lastly, we're going to add the in-between. These are the drawings that will help us create a smooth animation and connect the keyframes with the extremes. Now we're going to add more in-betweens on places where the ball will slow down. The very last thing we need to do is now number each one of our drawings. This now will conclude our plan. Up next, let's go ahead and get started with our animation. The first thing we need to do is to extend the duration of our layer. As you can see, if I move on my timeline, the drawing of my plan will disappear. My last drawing being 26, I'm gonna scroll through I get to my 26th frame, and here we're going to right click and extend exposure. You can also click F5 as a shortcut. Now as I scroll, you would see that my animation will stay. Go ahead now and extend the rest of your animation until you reach frame 60. In order for us to be able to work correctly with our plan, we need to lower the opacity. To access the opacity, right click on the layer, go to where it says Plan, right click, and enter Layer Properties. Go through the tab that says Advanced, and towards the bottom you would see Opacity. Change that to 25, press enter, and then close. At this point, we're done working with our plan. Lock that layer and create a new drawing layer. Let's call this one Ball. We're gonna go into our ellipse tool. The ellipse tool can be found below the text tool. Click and hold the rectangle tool and select ellipse. I can now click and drag, and this will create a perfect circle. Using the black-headed arrow, we're gonna draw a selection around the ball. With the ball selected, right click and select Copy Drawing Object or Control C. Now I will move one frame, right click on my workspace and click Paste Drawing Object. Hovering over my object, I will now click and drag it to my second position. Let's repeat that again. Click and drag to an empty frame, right click on the workspace, paste drawing object, and move into place. You can also use the arrow keys to move the drawing around. After a while, you will notice that this process will get pretty repetitive. So why don't we use some keyboard shortcuts to make the whole process faster? Instead of me clicking and dragging to go to the next frame, I will now use the period and the comma on my keyboard to swing back and forth. Control paste or Control V as in Victor. Click drag and then repeat. Now we can scroll to our timeline to see our animation. You can also click the loop icon and the play to see the progress of your animation. Our first animation now is completed. However, it can still be optimized. Let's go ahead and look a couple of ways where we can improve our animation. First off, it looks like our ball kind of disappears out of the frame. Let's go ahead and create a frame hold so that the ball stays within frame. Go to frame 60, right click, and extend exposure. Now, as we play our animation, the ball will stay within frame. Towards the end, if you decide to maybe add additional frames, it's quite easy. You may also want to be able to take a look of the frames that come after or before the current selected frame. For this, we have the onion skinning tool, which you will find at the very bottom of our tools. By clicking, you will now get a parameter that will show you the current frame. This one will be on black. The previous frames, these ones will be on red, and the frames that will come after, which will be on green. And now we can scroll through our animation, fine-tuning it so that it looks better. You can adjust the parameters of the onion skinning to see only the previous drawing and the one coming up. This now allows me to edit my animation. I will now place the last few drawings closer together to create the illusion of slowing down. Once you're done, you can turn off the plan layer and see your animation. We'll create one more layer for the ground plane. I'm just gonna call it ground. Using my line tool, I will make a straight line, select it, lock that layer when done, go to my animation, go to the last frame, extend my layer, lock it, go to my animation, and revise my work. At this point, I can now keep adding more frames towards the end. Maybe let's say I want the slowdown to occur to be even more exaggerated. Then I will just go into that layer, delete the current layer, turn on the onion skinning and paste another circle. This circle will be in between those two layers. And I will repeat that same process a few more times. I can select multiple frames and just delete them. Extend my onion skinning. And now paste a couple more drawings there. I can always grab my zoom tool so that I have more control over my objects. Once done, go ahead and take a look at your work. The very last thing we need to do now is just add a little bit of squash and stretch so that it adds some life into our scene. Squash and stretch frames will occur before it hits the ground. This frame, we're going to select it, holding down Alt. It's going to allow us to stretch our object, so rotate it slightly and make it slightly bigger. Holding down Alt, as it hits the ground, it squashes. Holding down Alt, it squashes, so we can grab the pivot point because it's going to squash as it hits the ground. As it goes up, holding down Alt, it's going to stretch slightly. On the second bounce, we are going to repeat the same process. Now the squash and stretch will now be less noticeable. Grabbing the pivot point all the way down. And towards the end, the bounce will be so little, we will not even notice. So no need to add it there. Let's take a look. And here you go. You have successfully completed your first bouncing ball animation. Now, we are going to bring back up our plan, unlock the layer, go to layer properties, change opacity back to 100. So to submit the plan, I would like to see a JPEG. The easiest way to go about this is to go into your Windows menu, look for the snipping tool, select it, hit new, click and drag, file, save as, first name, last name, underscore, week 1, plan. This is the same format that I would like you to use. Make sure that is a JPEG file. Go ahead and save. With that out of the way, now we can go back to Toon Boom, toggle off the visibility of the layer, go to File, Export, Movie, browse, input your file name, now this time we're going to type week 1 animation, click Save, export range, make sure it's set to all, and click OK when done. Before submitting any assignment, you gotta make sure that the videos and images are exported correctly.